And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue.
If you cannot speak and talk about the history of who they are, then they will not really carry your story. They will not understand their story. So today, the first thing I was the greatest revelation I was telling you a while back, is that most people trying to reach, and I'm going to specifically talk today, and next week will be Spanish, the following week the Asian, etc. But I'm going to talk specifically today about the black culture. And I wanted to right now, I know, and how many would agree that I am not black? Can I get a witness, everybody? Amen. Praise God. Praise God. Pretty white to me. Can I get an amen up in here? Yeah. Praise God. Amen. So here's the deal. But what I want to share with you is I want to talk to you about is that, you know, we went across the country and we found out there's certain things that help reach that culture and reach it effectively. And there's certain things that don't make it happen. Okay. And today I would like to talk about those things that do reach the culture, specifically the men of the culture. And the first thing I found out is this. I found out that they do not know their history. That's one of the things that I know. And so you have to tell them their history. So today I'm going to attempt to do that. He's now positioned in a position of power and authority. He has given within him a belt. On one side is justice, and the other is blessing. He now is given the Constitution of God as a king. I give this to you, Bishop, as a sign of covenant, as a sign of release, as my sign of love for you. Amen. My brothers will come forth, 4 sons representing the 4 corners of the earth. They'll raise him up right now. He now is raised up from a commoner to a kingship. Come on, raise it up. And I'll walk him around. Come on! Come on, praise God.
Want to say Shalom Lak, Mash Paka. Want to say peace and blessings to everyone that's tuning in tonight. I hope and pray all is well with you guys. Let me make sure my mic is good here. All right. Want to say peace and blessings, family. If you guys can hear me, type one inside the comment section. If you can hear my voice, if you can hear my audio, type one in the comment section. All right, good, good. Want to say peace and blessings to everyone. Want to again say Shalom Lak, Mash Paka. Want to start off by giving the shout outs to you guys that are here right now. And I know some of you guys are probably trying to figure out why do I have that clip from Jason's lyric. Well, YouTube had me locked down again. Earlier this year, they had me locked down for like 5 months for no reason. Only thing I could do, I couldn't go live, but I could do everything else. And they locked me down again for a couple of weeks, about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And so it is what it is. They have been doing a lot to, really suppress my channel with the shadow banning and, same thing I went through when I was in doing the Facebook thing. Facebook began to suppress my videos, made it so that way I couldn't do lives for almost 3 years. I would go live, and then within 2 or 3 minutes, I get kicked off. The bandwidth was always looking like, as if I had outdated equipment. Like I was using a 28K modem. It was terrible, and they're still doing that. So it's interesting that with Facebook, for example, if I go live, no notifications are sent out. Now I may be lucky to get about 10 people, if that, on a live. But I do a post, I get far more people. I could get hundreds of people on a post. So that gives you an idea of just how they've been locking down, suppressing my channels, suppressing my videos on different platforms. But it is what it is. So I'm currently working on something right now to launch something that's, definitely a platform I could just put these teachings on. But nevertheless, that's why I wanted to just explain that to you guys. For some of you guys that may not be aware, my channel was locked down. So let me do some quick shout outs and we'll get started here. I want to say peace and blessings to Essie. I want to say shalom to you. I want to say shalom to my brother here, Alahayim, is with us. Absolutely appreciate you. I want to say peace and blessings, shalom to Israelite wife. Who else do we have here? Sheila. I want to say peace and blessings to you as well. Appreciate you. Avery Thomas. Want to say peace and blessing. Was good is the Most High is good. Hallelujah. Want to say peace and blessings to faithful sister Enya. I want to say peace and blessings to you. And that's right. Eddie Long looks like he don't believe this himself. That's right. And the reason why I show that video is so that way it can really get up under your skin. When you hear a Caucasian, someone that's not from our community, tell us that we don't know our history and jokes about it and say that he has to tell us our history, right? That should be very insulting to our people. Unfortunately, many don't know our history. Many don't understand, truly know our history. And because of that, we fall for every wind of doctrine, right? And even with the lesson I'm going to give tonight is going to further prove that we don't understand history because we keep repeating the same thing over and over again. So that was Rabbi Messer, right? Who teaching identity to our people. That lesson that he was teaching is the whole message is on this platform, and you can hear the whole message, and it's all over the place, right? But I'm not going to get into all of that. But you see the hustle, right? Parading Eddie Long all around. That's why I showed that, just so that way you can see how people are hustling our identity for the sake of money. All right. So I want to say thank you, sister, for taking the time out to watch us tonight. Alberta, I want to say shalom, shalom. Absolutely. I'm covering all the bases. Appreciate you. Yeti brother Salama, want to say peace and blessings to you as well. My buddy Jay Highstar. I was checking my inbox, Jay, but I didn't see anything. Resend it because I was really looking for it. I'm not sure why it's not there. So if you could resend the email to me, and I'm going to open up the live here so that way you could jump in. You know how we do, and I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate the prayers and the support. I really do. So feel free to resend that email to me. All right. Love you, man. Who else do we have here? Let's see. Let's see here. Let me scroll down some. Want to say Yah's grace. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Enosh Ben Israel, peace and blessings to you. Major peace and blessings to you. Pieces of me, pieces peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have here? Dash, like I see Dash Boy 007. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Let's see here. Malka Bat Yisrael. Want to say shalom to you. Who else do we have here? Prophetess Shawnee. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have here? Tia Yah Thompson. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Who else do we have here? Want to say I have 78 Vet. Want to say peace and blessings to you. Shalom to you as well. Who else do we have here? Okay. Oh, it's at Richardson. I'm looking at the wrong place. Let me check in there again, Jay, because my Richardson one, the one that you sent it to, it's flooded with a lot of spam, so it's probably layered with it. So I'll check it again, or if you want to resend it to there, that'll be fine. That way, it's not embedded with the with all the messages I get there. So appreciate you. I'm going to check that one. Appreciate you. All right, let's see here. Calvin, want to say shalom to you. Who else do we have here? Well, I think we got to everyone, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in, taking a look at this presentation tonight. And I know it's a lot to cover tonight. Now, I know it's probably going to turn some heads, which it probably already did with me expressing that not to call me a Christian. And I did a full teaching on that. And I encourage you guys to go back and look at the live that I did. Don't call me a Christian. That lesson is not to insult anyone, but state my position on that. Because, again, a lot of our brothers and sisters are teaching this word. And I want to make sure that people understood, everyone that listened here on this platform know exactly what Pastor Richardson believed and teach. Now, this lesson is not meant to throw any shots at anyone, but just expressing what this platform what I believe, what I've been teaching, right? So again, don't call me a Christian. Apostle Paul didn't call himself a Christian. None of them called themselves Christians, but I encourage you to go back and watch that presentation, right? Truth be told, all these denominations that we see here in this country comes from Catholicism. Every denomination you see here, from Church of God in Christ to the Baptists to the evangelicals, all of them come from the Roman Catholics. That's a fact. So guess what? All the doctrines of the Catholic Church, guess what? Is part of Christianity. Especially when we deal with westernized Christianity. So those edicts that the Pope signed to enslave our people, guess what? That's all doctrines of Christianity / Catholicism. That's a fact. Can't get away from it. Can't separate one from the other. It's Christianity, the Catholic Church. Guess what? They enslaved our people, right? The same term that you see Christian, right? That term Christian, that's the reputation that comes with the territory of those that took that term and superimposed it now to have you as a badge of honor, right? Among the system, a kind of like a way of authenticating who's who among Christianity. But again, the Christian doctrine is not just their transliteration or their translation of the Bible, which many will use the KJV and others will use the NIV as of today. in other translations. But guess what? That's not just the only doctrine. Everything, all the doctrines that's contained within Catholicism, Christianity, like those declarations of war that they declared on our ancestors that was occupying West Africa, guess what? That's part of the Catholic/Christian doctrine. Can't get away from it, right? It was the 15th century when you start getting into the Protestant movement, right? Anyway, I'm not going geek mode on that, but I encourage you guys to watch part 1. I am a follower of the way. That's what the disciples were referred to. That's what the people of the Most High, that's what Apostle Paul was looking for, followers of the way. Yalak ha-darak, followers of the way. That's Acts chapter 9. Anyway, not trying to reteach that previous lesson. All right. So this lesson here, the title of this lesson is, I don't believe in God. Let me say that again. I don't believe in God, but I'm not an atheist. Let me say that again. I don't believe in God, but I am not an atheist. Do you know the Israelites are also referred to as atheists because they didn't want to follow the Roman gods and goddesses. That's what atheists, truly mean. It's not saying you don't believe in the Most High. It's saying that you don't initially believe in the Roman gods and goddesses. But that's another discussion for another time. But tonight we are going to cover a lot. We have a lot to cover. But before I go on, I want to say this to all those that are watching and those that will watch this on the replay. I want to give a shout out to Tasha K for having the courage to expose what she exposed, because unfortunately with a lot of our brothers and sisters, we are so caught up in, wanting to hear the stories, want to hear the gossip. We're living in a society. Matter of fact, our ancestors experienced the perpetrator being treated as a victim and the victim being demonized for exposing the perpetrator. Now you have people that want to bash against, don't believe in the scriptures, don't believe in the Bible, now trying to use the Bible. It's just a laughing stock. Could pick them apart easily. So I want to just give her shout outs. Tasha K, pray for her. You know what I mean? Because it takes a lot of courage to expose what she exposed, right? Pray for the victim of this predator polite. Michael Noack. Let's pray for the victim. All right. Let me play just a quick clip and we're going to get into our lesson, just so that way you guys understand that it's all a hustle to these guys, the conscious community. Sonetta is all in on it. He knew that Polite had an issue with messing around with young girls. So this is a video clip from 5 years ago when Sonetta was beefing with brother Polite and threatened to expose his business publicly. He shared some of it. And so I'm just going to play the quick clip and then we're going to get into the lesson.
So you go on to say that Sonetta talked about your kids. Who are you talking about? Huh? You ain't talking about this, yeah, right? You ain't talking about that, her, right? You ain't talking about, no, bitch, that's right. I know you ain't talking about her. I knew her before you, Polite. You ain't talking about her, right? The one you call Renentet, you ain't calling her your daughter, are you? Don't do it. Don't make me do it again. Huh? Little Dr. York, don't make me do it again. Little Dr. York. You ain't talking about her, right? The one that you call Renentet. Huh? That ain't your daughter. Cut it out. Don't make me bring her sister right here in front of me. Her sister is my wife's cousin. Again, you know that. Play yourself. You know that. Play yourself for themselves. Huh? She ran away from home to be with your ass.
All right, so you hear for yourself. Sonetta spilling the beans, threatening to go nuclear on Brother Polite. This was like 5 years ago. Young Pharaoh exposed this as well. That girl was only 16 years old, ran away to be with Polite. All right, so family, we're living in a treacherous day right now, and people are being blown away with every wind of doctrine. So let's go ahead and get into the lesson tonight. We got a lot to cover. And Jay, I'll drop the link inside the comment section shortly. And if you want to jump on in, feel free. Want to say peace and blessings, shalom to Dr. Newell. Appreciate it. Also got my sister Carol. Want to say shalom to you as well. See some others that have joined in. And so I really appreciate you guys. And family, this is the day and time where we start really understanding the prophecy where it says that, the elect, right, going scarcely make it. Scarcely make it. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the lesson here. Let me maximize this presentation here. All right. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God, but I'm not an atheist. So we got a lot to cover. I'm going to have to break this lesson up into two parts because of just how in depth it is. So I know I'm not going to make it to the end. If not, we'll be here till probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how in depth this lesson is. So we'll break it up. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Have you ever been confused about the usage of the name God? Have you ever been confused about the usage of this name God? Are you confused on whether it's singular, whether it's plural? Have you ever really been confused about using this name God? Who is God? Who is God? Is this deity or deities the same as Yahweh, the Most High of the Israelites, the Most High of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? So are those who call on God, right? Are they calling on the Most High of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? The Most High of the Israelites? This word is very confusing, right? Because I'm sure some of you guys have heard the question, especially if you was in Christianity, how can Jesus be God, but who raised him from the dead? You guys heard that before. Very confusing. This is the playbook that the Jehovah's Witnesses use. And I encourage those who have not seen the lesson I did on the Jehovah's Witnesses, I encourage you guys to watch that. It's rich with information on how to completely respond to and witness to Jehovah's Witnesses, but gives you a historical account of that belief system. All right. But these are some of the things that you hear. How can Jesus, right? Now, you guys know I say Yahweh Shai, but how can Jesus, just for the sake of the lesson, how can Jesus be God? How can Jesus be the Father? Who raised him from the dead? That's some of the things that you hear. That's what the Jehovah's Witnesses would use to trip up people that they're witnessing to in church. Right? So are there any laws that forbid the calling on other deities outside of the Most High of the Israelites? Are there any laws? Absolutely. Let's start with Exodus chapter 23, verse 13. It says this, and in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect and make no mention of the name. And again, family, I go over this word over and over again. Name, Sham, of other Elohim. Neither let it be heard, Shammai, out of thy mouth, Pi. Let me read it one more time. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect and make no mentions, Zachariah, of the name Sham, of other gods, Elohim. Neither let it be heard, Shemai, out of the mouth, pi. See, I'm going to say Alahayim, right? We'll deal with this word God, right? But again, I'm going to read it one more time. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect and make no mention, Zakar Yar, of the name Sham of other Alahayim. Neither let it be heard, Shemai, which means listen with intelligence. Let it not be heard out of thy mouth, pi. Let's now go to the Hebrew definition of this word mentioned. Let's see what it says. Let's see what it means. It says here, to mark. In other words, so as to be recognized. An example, to remember, to mention, be mindful, make to be remembered, bring. In other words, call, come, right? Keep, put, right? We see here to remembrance. So come to remembrance, keep to remembrance, put to in remembrance, recall. So let's read the NIV version of this text. And I want to make this clear. I am not an advocate for the NIV. That's a whole nother discussion when we start dealing with the manuscripts. The NIV comes from what is called the Alexandrian manuscripts, which broken into two codexes, the Codex Vaticanus and the Codex Sinaiticus. Codex Vaticanus, Catholic, right? The Catholic Church. All right. And this is where we get, the NIV, the Message Bible, and many of the newer translations of the text are based off this manuscript. The KJV, the Amplified Bible, the New KJV, even I don't recommend the New KJV, but many of the other Bibles like that, for us the what is the other one? The Gideon's Bible, and they are based off of what is called the Byzantine or the Antioch manuscripts, right? But that's a whole nother discussion. But the NIV is based off of the Alexandrian manuscripts, the Codex Sinaiticus, all right? And we'll do a lesson on that. But let's go to the text. It says here, be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this translation of the verse is because I like how it reads. It really gives you insight without you even having to actually know exactly what the words mean to really kind of put it in this proper context. But we're going to explain. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. Guys, do you know the Most High says that he is a jealous Most High? The Most High don't want to share or occupy space with another deity, another belief system, idols. The Most High don't like roommates, don't want any roommates. He made it clear. All right. So let's go to the Oxford Dictionary definition of the word invoke. This is what it means: cite or appeal to, in other words, someone or something as an authority for action or in support of an argument. But the sub entry says this: call on, in other words, a deity or spirit in prayer as a witness or for inspiration. It goes on to say, summon, in other words, a spirit by charms or incantation. So again, we're going to highlight here, summon a spirit by charms or incantation. Let's go to the etymology dictionary definition of charm, so we put it in this proper perspective of what it's just dealing with this word invoke. Incantation, magic charm, magic, spell, incantation, song, enchantment, religious formula. And we see the word canary, in other words, to sing. Canary, sing, to sing. This is where you also deal with the word ventriloquy, where you get the word The word ventriloquist, excuse me, comes from this word ventriloquy, which ties into canary. In other words, charms, right? The spell of singing or reciting these spells. All right. So charm also means to recite, as we pointed out, or this is the verb definition of this word, to recite or cast a magic spell, to enchant, to fill, in other words, someone with desire. But you notice song, singing. See, that's part of the formula when you really understand Nebuchadnezzar, right? Isn't that one of the things that they instructed the children of Israel to do when they hear the music play, to bow down and worship, to worship the idols that they put before them? That's not anything new, right? What we see today. So they use music as a form of spell casting, charms, as we say, canary. All right. So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of name. This is important. This is a word you have to know. This is a word that will really help you with your understanding when you're reading the text. Everywhere you see the word name or character, reputation, even where you see glory, right? Because sometimes the word name can transliterate to glory, the word glory. And it's synonymous to glory, the word kabod. All right. So name, let's see what it means. It says here, mark or memorial of individuality. In other words, what it's saying is a literal name. But then by implication, what it also means, as I pointed out, honor, authority, character, fame, infamous, renown, report. And also, as I pointed out, glory. You'll see that in the sub entries. All right. So the literal name, but also the reputation behind it, the bearer of it. Okay. So we are forbidden to call on the literal name and the reputation of other deities. Let me say that again. We are forbidden to call on the literal name and the reputation of other deities. That's what the Most High Yah made it clear. So how and why are followers of the way, not Christians, followers of the way, deceived into calling on other deities? Excuse the typo here. So how and why are followers of the way, Yalak ha Darak, how and why followers of the way are deceived into calling on other deities? I'm going to tell you why. The answer starts with syncretism. Let me say this again. The answer starts with syncretism. And you guys remember this word when I had dealt with the Bantu, right? And other things. So syncretism. Let me just give you a refresher of this word. What is syncretism? Let's deal with the etymology dictionary definition of syncretism. It says reconciliation of different beliefs, union of communities to combine against a common enemy. So to combine against a common enemy. Lying, as you see here, to lie like a Cretan. But the key is to mix, blend, mixture. All right. So let's use another source to give you more of a clearer understanding of what syncretism is. Now, this is coming from Afro-Christian syncretism in the Kingdom of Congo. All right. Let's see what it says. It says here, thus, now pay attention, family. This is syncretism. This is what syncretism means. Thus, early Christianity absorbed Hellenistic elements, among others, through the vehicle of prophecy and divine revelation as much as through a process of matching or exchanging core values. So too did the development of medieval Christianity and its engagement with the religious, or should I say religions, from northwestern Europe. Now, here's the kicker. The question important in particular to those who study the Congo diaspora to the Americas of whether or to what degree the Congo were Christian is ultimately really a sectarian one over over what constitute the core principles of Christianity. Throughout its history as a world religion, now pay attention to this, throughout its history as a world religion, Christianity, and we can interchange this with Catholicism, has incorporated outside beliefs from its original Jewish millenarian cult to its wedding with Greek philosophy, Roman state demands, Germanic customs. Let me read that portion of it again. To its wedding with Greek philosophy, Roman state demands, Germanic customs, and so on. So the whole history of the church has involved syncretism of one or another sort. And fundamentalists in all eras have sought through its original text to locate or relocate the original unsyncretized religion. So this is why you see Christmas, Easter. This is why you see Valentine's Day, St. Patrick. This is why you even see the how they carry out what they call the Eucharist, or in the Protestants, the Holy Communion, right? Through syncretism. This is why we see a lot of paganism. Roman Catholic is something that should stand out. This is why we see a lot of the things that you see inside the church right now. When I say the church, I'm referring to the Roman Catholics as well as Christianity, even though they're still one. See, in Christianity, what they began to do when they took over these Roman temples, they left the statues there. They just put names, changed the names. Instead of Zeus, they start putting other names up. All right. So again, to its wedding with Greek philosophy, Roman state demands, Germanic customs, and so on. So what is Catholicism? Since we're here, let me break this down real quick. Some of you guys probably remember this, Catholic, right? Catholicism comes from the word Catholic. Catholic means of the doctrines of the ancient church, right? This ties right into syncretism, right? Because what are you teaching? Universally accepted or universal general. You're teaching universalism, right? You're teaching general, right? Which comes from the word generic. All right, we'll deal with that real quick. So Catholic means universal and also general. General comes from the word generic. And here's the etymology of the word generic. It means belonging to a large group of objects. Here's the kicker: race, kind, comes from the Proto-Indo-European word gene, which means give birth, beget. So a general kind of special. So generic, that's what it means, but it comes from the word gene. So universal, right, simply means, right? So we dealt with generic, right? Which means, let me go back here so you understand. So generic, right, belonging to a large group of objects, race, kind, but it comes from the Proto-Indo-European word gene, which means give birth, beget. So I want you to understand universalism, or should I say the word Catholic, you could tie this in interchangeably with Christian. It's all about them planting their seeds, making their religion easily accepted to other cultures. So again, syncretism simply works is them trying to find commonalities of other belief systems to make it easier for them to embrace their and grow ultimately Christianity and Roman Catholicism. Prime example. Let's just say if you want to conquer a community, what they would do, they'll find out, let's just say, even though they may have a slew of gods and goddesses, but they'll try to find one that they can use to make it interchangeable with the Most High of the Scripture. So they'll ask them, do you have a God that's over the heavens, or a God that you consider to be the creator? They'll say, okay, we're going to, in your language, we're going to refer to the Most High and of the Bible and that with that name of that God. They'll do the same thing for trying to get a female goddess. Or they try to find out if that God had a wife, then they'll call it either Mary or the Holy Spirit, Miriam or the Holy Spirit. They'll find out if there's a great prophet among them, and then they'll automatically take that and connect it to the Messiah of the text. Even though we know that the Messiah of the text, right? Our Hebrew Israelite Messiah, matter of fact, our Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is not in any of those things. They have the names that is designated for them, and we'll deal with that shortly. So universal simply means the doctrine of unity, which we get the concept of the Trinity. See, the Trinity, as I say over and over again, is not something that's that Christianity / the Catholic Church has a monopoly over. Universalism or the Trinity comes from other communities, right? And we're going to deal with it real quick, right? Who is Uni? Let me break it down real quick. Refresher for some of you guys. Uni is Etruscan name for the Great Mother's Holy Trinity, a 3-in-1 goddess who gave birth to the universe. So this is what you're really tying into when you say Catholic, right? Universalism means the doctrine of universe. So all the shoots that came out of that particular branch came out of this belief system of Catholicism. Guess what? All these different denominations come directly out of the Catholic Church, and this is what you are pushing: universalism, or the worship of universe, the doctrine of uni. She was represented by the female genitals. Uni was a cognate of Yani. In Rome, the three were worshipped as the Capitoline Triad. In other words, the Virgin Mother Chrome. I don't have the image up here. I wish I had, but oh well. But nevertheless, but in the imperial times, the Virgin Goddess was removed to make room for Jupiter. But nevertheless, fact, it was Tertullian who introduced the concept of the Trinity. Right? The Israelites never used the word Trinity. Matter of fact, it's nowhere to be found in the scriptures. But yet that is used as a badge to see dealing with syncretism, because he introduced that Tertullian. All right. Christendom, right? Like I said, it's interchangeable with Catholicism, but nevertheless, it says here worldwide body or society of Christians. All right. But let's go back to this question here. Who is God? Right? Who is God? I know I shared a lot of information so far, but who is God? Let's go to the etymology dictionary definition of God. We see here supreme being, deity, the Christian God. But notice we see a number of other groups, right? Proto-Germanic, Guthan. We see Old Saxon, Old Frisian, Dutch God, Old High German, German Gott. And we're going to High German Gott, German God. We'll deal with that shortly. But these are the different groups within this Germanic trunk. All these languages come from the Germans, right? The Germanic trunk of languages. Proto-Germanic. That's what you see here. Proto-Germanic. This word God actually points to the Norse religion. Every language, right? Every language from a particular culture is going to involve that culture. Every language, let's just say the Israelites, right? All their words is going to be customized for their culture, for our culture. Same thing with the Greeks. So when they say have certain references there, it's going to point to their deities as well. It's no different with ours. We have a name for our Most High, who is above all. But his name is not God. He made it clear what his name is. All right. So Got is singular and Gater is plural. Right. And this is where you get I'm going to point out the origins of Got. And then you see the expression Got is, and I'm not using it as a curse word, but just so you get it in the proper context. Got damn. All right. So I want to make that clear. Right. But nevertheless, I meant to put another source here to show you go further with the got and gotter, but oh well. But we got enough information here to show that this word got, is not part of the Israelite community. And I'm going to show some more. I'll give you some information on that. But what we see here, right? Got damn. This comes from this word right here, garter damarong, right? And this is what this word means. It says complete overthrow, twilight of the gods, right? Notice what you see here from the genitive plural got, right? We're still dealing with what? Germanic. We're still dealing with Norse, right? We're still dealing with another belief system. But how did this term become a replacement for the Most High's name? People will rather call on this literal name versus, the Most High of the scriptures. But let's continue, family. See, Hasatan is not leaving anything unturned. They're not leaving anything unturned. So this term that you hear people say a lot, but I'm not going to repeat it again. But you see here, Gader Damarung, right? Which means completely overthrow. Twilight of the gods. Dusk, twilight. Right? Temerity. Okay? But it goes on to say, and we just want to highlight here, it translates Old Norse Ragnarok, right? Y'all remember from the Marvel comics, Ragnarok when you're dealing with Thor. But guess what? That actually means the doom or destruction of the gods. The last day, world's end. Okay? So more on this term, Götterdämmerung, all right? Going into the shadows of the gods. That's what it means. Going into the shadows of the gods. So remember, Gater is the plural of Got, right? All pointing within this Norse belief system. So when you say Gater in this full term here, you're saying, you're really telling someone to go into the shadows of these gods, often erroneously called Twilight of the Gods. The Teutonic doomsday, when all the gods would be destroyed and reabsorbed by the great goddess Skadi, or some would say Skadi, right? The shadow, like Kali in the Far East. All right. So the primal womb of darkness that cyclically devoured worlds and gave the birth, gave them new birth. All right. Excuse me from butchering it here. But nevertheless, this is all part of this belief system. This has nothing to do with the Most High. This has nothing to do with the Most High. This is something completely aside from another belief system. All right. This is not the Most High of Israel. But how are we so reliant on this word God? right? So how did the singular got and the plural gotter, how was it meshed into the translation of the holy text? And I'm going to share some additional information, but it was done through syncretism. Done through syncretism. See, the church in its syncretism, in its desire to convert as many people as possible to Christianity in order to increase its wealth and prestige, it absorbed many local beliefs. So the church would allow any pagan custom as long as these pagans would recognize the supremacy of Jesus Christ as the head God, with the Pope as his agent on earth. So establishing a common belief system through syncretism is much more important than a source of the beliefs. See, they want to push this agenda to make their belief system universal, to make it so that way they could plant seeds in other communities, kind of like the process of colonization. This is part of it. So are there any Semitic references to the word God? Let me clear some stuff up here because, there's some poor teachings that's going around, but I want to clear some things up about this word God. And also there's a word in Hebrew that sounds like God, but I'm going to make some things clear here. Let's clear the air. So let's start with the source, Ernest Klein, a comprehensive etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language. Let's start with the word Gad, right? Because we know that there's a tribe called Gad, but let's see what this says here. Let's see what it says about this name. And I'm going to give you more information on this as we progress, but I want to just start off somewhere. Gad, but guess what it says? Good fortune, luck, name of the god Fortune, right? Inscription and as element in many. And as you see here, you see Phoenician, Armenian, and all of this. We see all of this here. But then it goes on down here. It says in Arabic, it's actually pronounced Jad, which means good fortune, means luck. Interesting, right? Let's go to the Hebrew Chaldean lexicon of this dictionary, and let's see what it says of this same word. Now, I'm not dealing with the son of Jacob right now, Gad. I'm not sure if I even put his definition here, but I'm just showing you here. Notice what it says here. You see it here, God, right? You see Baal, right? Baal, right? So you see here fortune with art, especially the divinity of fortune, worshipped by the Babylonians and by the Jews exiled among them elsewhere, called Baal, right? This is who they're referring to, like fortune, right? This Baal, right? Baal. An example, the planet Jupiter, regarded in all East as the giver of good fortune. Something is wrong here. Why we see this word here? Let me give you clarity, family. Let me give you clarity. All right. Well, let's finish up with this definition. I'm going to give you clarity that the name was not God. All right. I'm going to give you clarity, but oftentimes when we see something and many try to justify it, like, hey, Gad, his name in Hebrew is pronounced God. So, hey, it's okay to use it. No, the Most High has his own name. Gad or God in the Hebrew language, you do not see any reference to the Most High through that name. But this is just showing you that in other cultures, it was equivalent to what we see here. So you see here, right? Venus called in the East, the lesser good fortune. See the underworld. I have treated, right? Of these religions, a greater length, right? But you won't see this word there. But well rendered by, and this is getting into the Septuagint. But notice you see here, Fortuna, right? Baal, God. That's what it says, compared. That's all it's saying. It's saying that this so-called God or whatever is comparable to Baal, God. I mean, saying it's comparable to Baal. But again, let me give you proper clarity because I'm going to clear it up to make sure you understand that that's not what what you just read here. I'm going to give you proper names of who it really is. But let's start with understanding fortune. Let's deal with fortune. I know I'm dealing with a lot of information here, but let's deal with fortune, right? Let's tie this in because you saw they mentioned fortune, the god fortune, right? So this is not dealing with the Most High. Even if you saw that term inside the Hebrew text, it's not referring to the Most High. The reference you see is pointing to the Babylonians, right? And it's telling us that the Hebrews that was in captivity began to do what? Some of them began to take on those gods, right? Baal, right? But nevertheless, we see here fortune, the Roman triple goddess. Whoa, wait a minute. Didn't we just deal with the triple goddess when we saw the Etruscans? So now we see a triple goddess under the Romans, right? The Roman triple goddess. Fortune is actually a Roman triple goddess. A fate had many fortune titles. So wait a minute. So we're getting right back to the Trinity, right? The Trinity, the triune, the triple goddess, right? That's basically what it means. Trinity, fortune, Roman. Remember, we're dealing with syncretism. These are some of the names. I'm not going to go through all of this, right? But this is where you get some of the things like Russian roulette, because you see this wheel in the background, right? Wheel of fortune, right? The lottery, right? Fortune, Fortuna comes from her. It's the worship of her, right? This Roman god or goddess. You see here, Greek tyke was the same as fortune. You see again, same god in Greek. When she was a fate attached to an individual, like a guardian angel, she was a psychic. In other words, a soul or anima, spirit. Her Roman name, Fortuna, may have descended from Fortuna. In other words, she who turns the year. The great mother turning the celestial wheel of the stars and also the karmic wheel of fate. Again, this is where you get the wheel of fortune. This is where you get the Russian or should I say the roulette table? This all comes from that. Okay. Notice what it says here, right? He appeared next to her in the guise of the Lord of Death, right? This is dealing with the Orphic bowl, but nevertheless, it goes on to say halfway around the circle at the point of midnight, holding in his right hand the poppy stalk of the sleep of death turned downward. Right, just give me some additional information. I don't want to go too deep into this, but this is the part I want to highlight. On the goddess's magic wheel of time, odd numbers were sacred to her, even numbers to her consort. Again, remember I said this is where you get the wheel of fortune. Roman religious festivals were scheduled for the odd-numbered female days because they were supposed to be more propitious than male days. So Fortuna became patroness of gamblers when her fate wheel was secularized as the carnival wheel of fortune, and she was renamed Lady Luck. All right, this is where you get it from. You're worshiping these gods. You worshiping these deities. You know the Most High. That's why if you want to deal with when people say playing the lottery and all this other stuff, this is what you tapping into. You think the Most High, as we just talked about, you think the Most High wants you to deal with it? I mean, be involved and calling on, invoking on these belief systems? So let's go to the Encyclopedia of the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Encyclopedia, right? Let's deal with this word God. Notice what it says here. Anglo-Saxon, Anglo in the Saxons, God, German, Gott, akin to Persian, Koda, Hindu, Kuda, right? Koda. God is variously defined, be defined as, right? Now, let me say here, God can be variously defined as, in other words, this is a generalized term. It can be used in so many different ways. Guess what? There's no ambiguity to the Most High's name. The proper name of the one supreme of the one supreme and infinite personal being, the creator and ruler of the universe, right? The doctrines of universe, to whom man owes obedience and worship. So this is one definition. This is one meaning of the word God. But then it gives you another one, the common or generic name, generic, generalized, giving birth to something else. Remember, begat. That's what gene, the primitive root word gene comes from. Generic comes from gene, begat, planting seeds, the common or generic name of the several supposed beings to whom in polytheistic religions divine attributes are ascribed and divine worship rendered. And it also says the name sometimes applied to an idol as the image or dwelling place of a god. You see the ambiguity there? The root meaning of the name, and this is giving you just what we already covered, some of the different ones. Notice you see Gothic, Sanskrit, and we'll deal with that real quick. To invoke or to sacrifice to, right? Then we see different from Indo-Germanic roots, where it means to shine, give light, to implore, right? And notice we see some additional names down here, Sanskrit. We see the word dayas, in other words, divas. This is where you get the divas from. We see Indo-Iranian, right? We see the Latin deus, right? So these are different forms of it, right? All which are generic names. But why we've been institutionalized when we was growing up in church to thinking that this name is the only name that's attached to the Most High. This is syncretism at its best, family, because now this God or Got of the Norse, right, of the Germanic groups are now spread across. Now people are singing songs. Now people would rather call on that literal name than the Most High's name. They feel uncomfortable saying Yah. Right? So it goes on to say here, and other proper names of pagan deities. Right? Oh, let me highlight this right here. Notice where it says here, the common name widely used in Semitic occurs as El. I'm going to correct this right here. In Hebrew, Elu in Babylonian. So the Ilu or Elu is what? Babylonian, right? Remember, it had Gad or God there, but actually Ilu, right, is the actual name. In Arabic, Elah or Ilah, right? And etc. And though scholars are not agreed on the point, the root meaning most probably, right? Notice what it says, probably. That's no assurity, is the strong and mighty one. So it's used in all these different Germanic places. But notice, even when it tried to say in Hebrew, right? El or Al or Allah, guess what? That's the proper pronunciation, not El. But even then, how do you get God from El? See, this is where we start getting into a lot of confusion here. It says those scholars are not agreed on the point. The root meaning most probably is the strong or mighty one. So this is what I want to highlight real quick. In that previous definition, I read a lot of countries, right? But this is what you see here. It's called the Proto-Indo-European tree of languages, right? If you study languages, you'll know this right here, right? Let me go back here. So you see 4 trunks here: Anatolian, Celto-Italo, Tocharian. We also see Balto-Slavo-Germanic. We also see Ariano-Greco-Armenic, right? You see the 4 trunks coming from this stump, which is called the Proto-Indo-European language. So you see the 4 big trunks here. So notice if we go to this third trunk, right? You see this Balto-Slavo-Germanic, it breaks into 2 trunks. But if we stay to this left, right, this trunk right here, it breaks into what? 2 branches: Northern Germanic, Western Germanic. But notice those names that we covered in those definitions: English, Frisian, High German, Low German, Dutch, Flemish, Danish. We saw Swedish, right? But then if we go over here, which one we want to go on? Yeah, let's go to the Ariano Greco-Armenic, right? To the right, because it breaks into two trunks here. And then you see the branches here, Greek, right? Doric, Ionic, this is giving you Arcadian, this is giving you the Greek. But notice if we come around here, this breaks into more branches here, right? We still dealing with the Aryan, Greco-Armenic, but then it breaks into two additional branches. But let's follow it around. As you see my mouse, notice you see Sanskrit. Right? This is how this is another indicator to really start identifying who's who. Right? So Proto-Indo-European language, that's nothing. I mean, that's similar. Simply saying the language of Japheth, right? Genesis chapter 10. How each son had their own what? Land, family, and what? Languages. So is this confusing word God the name of the Most High of the Israelites? Let me say that again. Is this confusing word God the name of the Most High of the Israelites? Let me give you another source here. Right? Let me give you another source. Roman private guides revealing God's name, a secret hidden for centuries by the Vatican. Right? This is a company over in Italy, right? And they give make travel arrangements and all this other stuff, and they give you history of the territory. But I want you to pay attention to something here, right? I want you to pay attention to here. This is the link down here, right? Roman private guides, right? But notice what it says about Vatican City, right? About the Vaticans, right? Let's see what it says about this article titled Revealing God's Name. Let's see what little secrets they've been hiding. Revealing God's name, a secret hidden for centuries by the Vatican. In 2017, Pope Francis felt that the Vatican needed to create a connection with the public, and he realized the need for deeper transparency. This led to his request to unseal a set of ancient scrolls from the Vatican's secret archives, scrolls that have been secretly concealed from the public for centuries, as it often happens with text or art deemed threatening or too revealing by the church. But notice this right here. Over the centuries, the church has destroyed many art pieces, books, and ancient texts to protect its legacy. Let me read that again. Over the centuries, the church has destroyed many art pieces, books, and ancient texts to protect its legacy, to protect its reputation, to protect its belief system, that so many of our brothers and sisters are still part of that modified world system, that religious system, still part of that system. Don't know how to get off of it, don't know how to be weaned from it. Let me read this again. Over the centuries, pay attention to this, right? Pay attention to this, family. See, this is why we have our brothers and sisters are struggling with breaking away from this. Why? Because it was a plan all along. Listen to what it says again. Over the centuries, the church has destroyed many art pieces, books, and ancient texts to protect its legacy. Now, I got to bring my minion in here.
What?
So the church was destroying all kinds of books. You know what? You know what this remind me of? Let me play a clip to make sure you have the proper overtone, to really understand what's taking place here. Let me play a clip here that you guys may know, so that way you could get an understanding of what's happening here.
Look, I need that book. I mean, I want the book. And you, but if you make me choose, I'll kill you. I'll take the book.
Why? Why do you want it?
I grew up with it. I know its power. And if you read it, then so do you. That's why they burned them all after the war. I imagine Imagine how different, how righteous this little world could be if we had the right words for our faith. Well, if people would truly understand why they're here and what they're doing, and they wouldn't need any of the ugly motivations. It's not right to keep that book hidden away. It's meant to be shared with others. It's meant to be spread. Is that what you want?
With all my heart and soul. I always believed that I'd find a place where this book belonged, where it was needed.
You see, that's a perfect analogy. Notice how that guy wanted Eli to give up the book. The key is he wanted the book for himself. He understood the power of that book. And so that book was actually a KJV Bible. But here it is. He wanted that book for himself. So he'll have total control of all the people. He knew the power in the book, but the people really didn't understand. The place was in a state of destitute. But if he can have that control of that book, then he'll be a type of Christ among the people. He'll be a type of Popple. He'll be a type of pope among the people. He wanted to control that book. And guess what? I'm going to show you here with this article is showing the same thing, that the Pope, that the Catholic Church purposely withheld the let me read it to you. I'm going to show you what they did. I'm going to give you more here. Let me let the text speak for itself. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So it says here, over the centuries, the church has destroyed many art pieces, books, and ancient texts to protect its legacy. But that is a story I will share another time. For now, let's get back to the text that will surely fascinate you with its implication, as it will have you wonder about the motivations to keep it hidden, referring to the name of the Most High, the motivations to keep this name hidden, as well as about its meaning. Notice what it says here. The discovery of the scrolls in question dates back to 70 AD. This is the time of the diaspora. This is the time when Jerusalem was sieged, as it says here, when the Romans sieged the temple of Jerusalem, previously hidden from the knowledge of the church for centuries. These hidden scrolls were obtained in 463 AD and subsequently banned by Pope. Notice this name, Hilarious, right? Right? The Most High got a great sense of humor, right? These scrolls were hidden, right? They were obtained in 463 AD, right? These hidden scrolls were obtained in 463 AD and subsequently banned by Pope Hilarious. Right? Nothing funny about this, but hilarious, for a very important reason. He aimed to keep the true name of the Most High hidden from the people and had it stricken from all official literature. Wait a minute. He had it stricken from what? All official literature. In other words, decided to remove the name of the Most High from the translations of the Bible, all the literature, to point to this word God, to point to the word Lord. And this is why our people are so strung out and so trapped in this delusion. That's why it says it's only going to be what? The Most High's people is going to scarcely make it in. It's going to many of us going to barely make it. Why? Because only a few of us is going to really grab hold of this truth with what I'm saying here. So many of our brothers and sisters are still going to see this presentation, and I've been teaching this for years, and they're still going to say, hey, I believe in God. Well, now you're going to deny the Most High's literal name, his literal name and reputation, even if you don't want to say Yahweh, even if you don't, you think that Yahweh Shai, not Yahweh Shai, Yahweh or Yahuwah, these different variations of the same letters, even if you don't want to say that, you can say Yah, but many of them are going to purposely, just like what they're doing with the word Christianity. Christian. They would rather say that they are Christians to what? Bow down and continue to be accepted by these religious systems that have enslaved our people. So many thinking that they're going to make it into The right standings, be on the right side of judgment. And the Most High is going to say worker of iniquity, because he gave the law about invoking other names, names of other deities. But many are going to continue to do it anyway, because they want to do what they want to do. They want to keep doing how they feel is or what is right, versus knowing the law, statutes, and commandments. The Most High don't waver. He don't like roommates. But let me read this. Let me continue with this. It says here, right? Had it stricken from all official literature, the scrolls contained the true name of the Most High, as communicated to Moses in a censored part of Exodus 3:14. Ever since, the true name of the Most High has been passed down from pope to pope as privileged secret knowledge, and kept hidden from the layman until Pope Francis. Let me read that again. So the true name, right, of the Most High, right? I'm gonna break this down more. We'll get to the actual pronunciation from an ancient Hebrew, but notice what it says here. The true name of the Most High has been passed down from pope to pope as a privilege, secret knowledge. They've been passing this down. They know that God, that term God, is not the Most High. They know this, but they allowed the entire world to be deceived by this, thus fulfilling the prophecies of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. That's why the Most High said he's going to send a strong delusion. For who? For those that have received this truth and still want to hold on to the lies, so they will go from the state of being lost to being what? Fallen away. But those that receive this truth and operate in this truth, you're going to go from the state of being lost to being what? Found. There's a fork in the road. When this truth get presented to you, you have a decision to either accept it or reject it. But many of our brothers and sisters are still wanting to hold on to these constructs, right? That was created from the very people that have enslaved us, and still falling right up in alignment with the Roman Catholic Church. Notice what this says here. Ever since, the true name of the Most High has been passed down from pope to pope as privileged secret knowledge, and kept hidden from laymen until Pope Francis decided to put an end to the double life the Vatican was leading by revealing the secret in 2017. In Exodus 3:14, appearing before Moses as a burning bush, the Most High revealed his name, referring to himself in the Hebrew tongue as, of course, you see Yahweh. And I'm going to break this down. I don't have enough time to do it all in one lesson, but we'll break this down and I'll show you it's actually Yahweh. But still, this is, at least you're seeing the tetragrammaton here. At least you're seeing the Yahweh, or some would say Yohe Vahe, if they not getting into all of that. But where do you get the word God from? They know that that's not the Most High's name. But notice what this says, which translates to I am who I am. The church decided that this name needed to be replaced with the words God and Lord. Lord is a political position in Germany. This is where you get the Lords of Flatbush and all these different Lord. This is not the Most High. So they replaced it with God or Lord. So if you see Lord in caps, right, you know that it's pointing to the Most High's name, right, in the ancient Hebrew. But if you see lowercase in many cases, you'll see that it's transliterated from the word Adonai. But notice here, the church decided, right? Let me read this. The church decided that this name needed to be replaced with the word God and Lord. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Let me say it in slow motion. The church decided that this name needed to be replaced with the words God and Lord for the people in the back. And so Yahweh was stricken from all the passages, and the scrolls were kept in the apostolic archives of the Vatican and hidden from public knowledge, as the name of the Most High was to be known by the Pope only. He wanted to have that power. Let me play this again one more time. Let me play this clip one more time so you can put it in this proper context of what we're dealing with right here. The control, the power that the Pope wanted to have by him, those guys alone having the true meaning of the Most High's name, and that in their minds, they're the ones that's only truly invoking the power of the Most High, while everyone else are not and have to be dependent on them. Let me play it again here. So let me play this clip again.
Look, I need that book. I mean, I want the book. And you, but if you make me choose, I'll kill you. I'll take the book.
Why? Why do you want it?
I grew up with it. I know its power. And if you read it, then so do you. That's why they burned them all after the war. Now imagine how different, how righteous this little world could be if we had the right words for our faith. Well, people would truly understand why they're here and what they're doing, and they wouldn't need any of the ugly of motivations. It's not right to keep that book hidden away. It's meant to be shared with others. It's meant to be spread. Is that what you want?
With all my heart and soul. I always believed that I'd find a place where this book belonged, where it was needed.
See, family, this is why I'm making it clear what I believe and teach according to facts. This is why I'm teaching what I'm teaching. The Most High made it clear that I need to make sure every person that's listening here understand what Pastor Richardson believe and teach according to the Dabar HaKodesh. This is why I say I don't believe in God, because guess what? That's not the Most High's name. I'm not a Christian because the Messiah didn't call the disciples to go creating Christians. The Israelites would have never used that term Christian for the followers of the Most High. They would not have used the Messiah term. They rejected the Messiah. So why would they use it for their follower, for his followers? It was the way, the followers of the way. But anyway, let's continue, family. Let's continue. So again, the church decided that this name needed to be replaced with the words God and Lord. And so Yahweh was stricken from all passages. All the passages in the scrolls were kept in the apostolic archives of the Vatican and hidden from public knowledge, as the name of the Most High was to be known by the Pope only. So family, this is prophecy right here that I want to just reiterate. Some of this is a refresher to some of you guys, this portion here, but I want to go through it again for those that may be listening to it for the first time. And then I'll bring my buddy Jay Highstyle and others that want to come in and just we'll close it out. But Romans chapter 1, verse 22 through 24. Apostle Paul gave this prophecy in his letter written to the Romans, and you will not find the word Christian anywhere in it. But professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible Yahweh into an image made like to corruptible men, and to birds, and to four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore Yahweh also gave them up to uncleanness through. All right, I'm not going to get into that portion of it, but nevertheless, the word glory, change the glory, comes from the Hebrew word kabod, as I mentioned earlier. Kabod means, right, in a good sense, you see here, numerous, rich, honorable. But then we also see what? Glorified, okay? So glory simply means honor. It also means reputation. As I said, it's interchangeable with the word name, which means reputation, right? Character, right? So making this clear. Another word that's interchangeable with glory, as I just pointed out, is sham, name. Remember what it means? Let's bring it back up here. It means a literal name. In other words, mark, memorial of individuality, but it also means what? The reputation, the honor, the character of the bearer of this literal name. Okay, renown, report. All right. So let's go back to this prophecy here. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible Yahweh, the reputation of the uncorruptible Yahweh, into an image made like made to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore Yahweh also gave them up to uncleanness through. All right. Didn't put the whole text there, but nevertheless, change the glory, kabod, of the uncorruptible Allahayim. Okay, let's go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 26. You guys remember this, but I want to make sure I reiterate this, right? Because in the translation that we see in Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then men began kal or kala, men to call quara, upon the name Sham of Yahweh. That's why I'm not saying Lord. No, I'm saying Yahweh. That's what's actually there. But remember, the Pope, right, had the in the translation start using Lord and God, so that way you won't call on the proper name of the Most High. You're summoning, you're invoking names of other deities, other of idols, and all of these things. But then began call. Right? Let me explain this real quick. Then began call, meant to call upon the name. The Hebrew definition, right, of this word began. Let me give you the proper context of it. Kala, so that way you properly understand what it means. It says to bore, to wound, dissolve, profane, to break. Let me say it again, to bore. In other words, to wound, to dissolve, to profane, to break. In other words, one's word, right? Eat things that's as common. In other words, profane, unclean food. This word means profane, right? Cast as profane self, prostitute. So this is what they began to do with the literal name of the Most High, right? And the reputation behind it. So actually, kal or kala means to wound. In other words, wound, profane, defile, pollute. So what it's saying is that all men began to profane, in other words, wound the name, the literal name, and the reputation of Yahweh, the reputation of Yah with one consent, right? Genesis 3:15 gives us an indication of what wound, right, is. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed Zara and her seed Zara. It shall bruise, shall whop thy head, and thou shalt bruise, shall whop his heel. Right? So bruise, let's see what it means here real quick. Right? It means to disable, wound, injure. So they put subtle changes that you won't catch on to it. Subtle changes like putting Lord, God. Now we have all kinds of songs. Remember what I said, charms, right? This delusion is so deep that they have the church, right, singing charms, right, throwing charms in the atmosphere, calling on God, not the Most High's name, calling on God and Lord. Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. No, his name is not Lord. His name is Yahweh. His name in the short form is Yah, or you will see it also there as Adonai Yah. Not no Lord, not no God. That's why I say again, I worship the Most High. I don't believe in God, and no, I am not an atheist. Come on, family, we got to wake up. So again, bruise, shawat means to break, crush, wound. Now here's the short form of Yahweh, right? Here's the short form. Notice it says 48 times. It's transliterated to the word Lord 48 times. So 48 times where you see Lord is where you see the short form. And when you see Jah one time, it's only Jah is in the text, right? I'm not going to explain this here in this lesson. I'm going to do it when I release The Road to Savannah in part 2 to give you proper clarity on Jah. But nevertheless, 48 times Yah is in the text, but you don't see it. You only see Jah one time. So the short form of the Father's name, Yah, is common. The 68th book of Psalms, verse 4, we see it here. Right? I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just letting you see, as you see by his name in the ancient, you'll see Yah. Exodus 15:2, you'll see it again. Right? In the ancient Hebrew, guess what? You'll see Yah is my strength. Right? Let me give you another example. Isaiah chapter 12, verse 2, you'll see it again. Right? And notice you see the short form and the full name, Yahweh. Right? You see it there twice. Yah, the short form, and Yahweh, the full. Right? So men began to profane, wound the name, the literal name and reputation of the Most High. Here's a few names here. Amun-Ra, remember we covered this? His actual name is Yah Manu, right? Not going to get into all of this. You guys know what this is. We see in Egypt, they use Yah to make reference to him being a moon god in the Egyptian culture, right? And let me make this clear, because some are teaching and have taught that the short form Yah came from the Egyptians. No, look, this is where they get it from, but they misquoted. It says Yah may have been imported to Egypt, brought by Semitic immigrants. Not saying that this name started there. All right, but nevertheless, we see Yah, how, remember, all men began to profane the literal name and reputation of the Most High. That's what that text actually means. All right, fast forwarding here, we see Yahoo, right? Notice you see Yahoo. I meant to highlight the Yah portion of it, but Yahoo, right? Here it is, Yahoo, a brute in human form, a made name probably meant to suggest disgust, a person lacking cultivation. So when you use Yahoo, right, that's what it means. Right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 10 real quick, because some will try to say that, this name, Yahweh, is an Egyptian name, because remember, Yah is the short form of Yahweh, and we see it all through the holy text. And he said unto him, this is Pharaoh, let Yahweh be so with you. So this tells you that Pharaoh wasn't worshiping the Most High, Yahweh. He knew his literal name, but he didn't worship him. Be so with you as I will let you go in your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Ra'ah is before you, right? And so in this text, Pharaoh knew the literal name of the Most High, but Pharaoh did not worship Yahweh. According to the Egyptian tradition, the right eye represented the sun, and so it is called the Eye of Ra, while the left represented the moon and was known as the Eye of Horus. So Pharaoh denied the request of the Israelites to worship Yahweh, but he also states that Ra is before you. So Yahweh used the plagues of the locusts and blotted out the midday sun. He used the plagues, right, of the darkness, right? Let me read it again. Yahweh used the plagues of locusts, which blotted out the midday sun, darkness from the sandstorms, and the death of the firstborn to blot out the eye of the land, which is called the Eye of Ra. So again, what's the Most High's name? What's his name? I'm giving you a lot of information. What's his name? We're going to stop right here. This would be a great place to stop at, but we're going to stop right here. I'm going to show you Exodus chapter 15, verse 1 through 3. And then part 2, we'll get into the actual name, the pronunciation. And I'll give you some Hebrew 101. I'll give you some sources to show you that there was no O sounds, no U sounds, no U sounds that we see today that many are using. But notice what it says here. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto Yahweh, and spake, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and and his riders he hath thrown into the sea. Now understand this. This is the song that the Israelites sang after they came out of Egypt, right? This is the song I believe the Messiah sang after he and his disciples honored the Passover, Pesach. And after they honored it, it says that they began to walk towards the mounts singing. The disciples be singing with the Messiah. And this is the song that Israelites sang after they were liberated, free from the Egyptians. Then sang Moses to the children of Israel this song unto Yahweh, and spake, saying, I will sing unto Yahweh, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his riders hath he thrown into the sea. Verse 2, Yahweh is my strength. Let me read that again. Yahweh is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. He is my Allah, and I will prepare him an habitation. My father's Allah, right? And I will exalt him. Wait a minute. Let's go to verse 3, right? Let me just say this real quick. So let's deal with Allah real quick, right? The Hebrew definition of Allah, let's see what it means. I want you guys to understand this right here, right? Notice you see here, Elohe, right? This is this pronouncing it with the the Nikud or the Israeli pronunciation, so Elohe, right? The Segal, the colon, right? And using the Saray Yod, actually, that's what you see here. So Elohe. Then you see here, it's pronounced the same way. Elohe. It's giving you different pronunciations here. And then you see Eloha, right? Eloha, right? So God-like, divine, right? And you see here, Allah Yah. Notice what I just said. Allah Yah. Almost sounds similar to what? Allah Yam. I'm going to explain that. Then you see Arabic, Ilahi, right? And then we see down here, right? We see Elohim, right? Elohim, which we see here, the masculine noun plural, gods, right? So this is plurality, supernatural beings, judges, right? But I'm just reading it to you so you can get a better understanding. So Allah, right? As we see here, right? This is coming from the Ernest Klein Comprehensive Etymological Dictionary. Notice what we see here. Allah, right? And we see here Allah, right? We see Eloha, excuse me. So, but again, we're going to explain this, and I explained this in part 1, but we'll explain this again when we do part 2 of this lesson, right? So notice what we see. Allah equals transliteration to the word God, right? So again, we see He Eliha, right? So I'll say it again. He Eliha, right? And we see here medieval Hebrew. That's what that MH stands for. Medieval Hebrew, right? And it says derivative. And we see ha, Allah. Wait a minute. Let's bring this together. So let's look at the Aramaic definition of Allah. Let's see what it says. Right? This is coming from ancient and Babylonian Assyrian, the English of contemporary, the dictionary. Aramaic, right? Allah. And we see Arabic, Allah. So how do we get L if that's from Ugaritic, Phoenician? So the mouth of two witnesses, we see Allah, Aramaic, and they quick to tell you that our Hebrew Israelite Messiah, the disciples, along with all of Israel, were speaking Aramaic, right? But we see Allah. They weren't saying El. They weren't saying Elohim. And we're going to explain that, but not tonight, all right? So Hebrew, let me stop right here. Let me fast forward this because I want to get into all of this right here. This is getting into the masculine plural. This is breaking down the masculine plural. I don't want to get into all of this right now, but I do want to close out with this final verse. So again, Allah is masculine, and adding the masculine plural yam is pronounced Allah yam. Okay. So the proper pronunciation of what they would try to tell you what God is in ancient Hebrew is not Elohim, it is Allah yam. You see, Arabic, Aramaic, or both say, one say Allah, right? While the other say Allah. I even showed you in Syriac language, it says Allah, right? So how do we get El, right? That's when you start getting into the manipulation of the language. But anyway, let's go back here. Verse 3, Exodus chapter 15, verse 3. We're going to close out with this. Notice what it says. Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Oh, notice what it says. Yahweh, right, is a man, Ayash, of war. Malak Ma, Yahweh is his name. Sham. Wait a minute, Moses, all of them are singing that Yahweh is his name. So anyone that come at you with any other name, they are teaching you to purposely break the law. They are teaching you to purposely break the law. Yes, there was one vowel. I see someone posting here. Roz, yeah, there was actually one vowel sound, and that was the ah sound, and we'll deal with that part too, right? And I'll show you here. But let me play one clip here, because I know I get a lot of, people want to make videos and people want to try to mock me saying shalom. See, I can defend the stance here where you hear me saying shalom. I can defend and show you the distinction between ancient Hebrew and the Israeli language. So wrapping up with this, let me play one clip for you so you understand what I say about these vowels, and we'll deal with the vowels next week. All right, let me play one clip here as we wrap it up.
Here's a chart that summarizes vowel class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, ah, e, and u. And then down the side the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the ah class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the ah class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew. Everything that is a cholam vav used to be a long ah. If you know the Hebrew word for peace, it's shalom. If you know the Arabic word for peace, it's salam. And that long ah in Arabic is now an O in Hebrew. And so historically, cholam vav was a long ah class vowel, and that's why we put it here.
What?
Oh, did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that, family? The cholam vav. Did you hear what this particular professor said? I got other proof I can pull this out. But he said there was no what? O sounds in ancient Hebrew. That cholam vav was changed from an ah sound to an O sound. Oh, wait a minute. So you want to laugh at me saying shalom, but I can shut you down when you say shalom. It's just not a deal breaker to me. So you have so many people that want to pretend that they know what they're talking about, right? This is why you have people playing clips, but they won't play your full teachings and all this. They want to give this illusion that they know what they're talking about. But this person, this professor, made it clear that guess what? There's no O sounds, right? There was no O sounds in ancient Hebrew, right? That cholam vav, that particular mark was created by the Masoretes in the 9th century. So in the 9th century, guess what? It made an ah sound. It did not make an o sound. So let me play it again. You think the Roman Catholics were busy? They weren't the only ones that was busy. Let me play that again, since I got asked to play it again. Here we go again.
Here's a chart that summarizes file class and length. And you can see across the top the three classes, A, E, and U, and then down the side the four lengths, long, medium, short, and very short. So let's just go over this chart. We'll start with the A class vowels. The long vowel is cholam vav, and you'll recall that this says O as in snow. Now you might wonder why an O vowel is in the A class, and this is because of historical considerations. Originally there was no O sound in Hebrew. Everything that is a cholam vav used to be a long A. If you know the Hebrew word for peace, it's shalom. If you know the Arabic word for peace, it's salam. And that long ah in Arabic is now an O in Hebrew. And so historically, cholam vav was a long ah class vowel, and that's why we put it here.
See, family, this is why I don't waver. So I'm going to give some three pieces out here for those that are teaching the teaching incorrectly, that want to badmouth everyone else because we're not conforming to what's happening there. You know what the majority is saying now. I got plenty of references and sources that I can play, but I'm gonna deal with some of it in part 2. But guess what? That's a whole nother different teaching with all the sources that I have. So let's give it a 3-piece here. Actually, that was the wrong one. That was tossing it out. But anyway, here's the 3-piece. All right, let's give it a couple more hit whack. And let's toss it out again. So family, I'm going to bring my buddy Jay Highstyle on here. And, you know, I see Sister Kara. If any of you guys want to jump on, feel free. If you want to make any comments here, and we're going to wrap this up. But appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let me bring my buddy here, Jay Highstyle. Really appreciate my buddy for being here. How's it going, Brother Jay? Doctor, how you doing? Let me unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
All right, I can hear you now.
How you doing, Pastor? Good to see you.
Doing great. Yourself? I'm
doing good. Boy, what you had to present to us tonight was mind blowing for sure. I'm still new to the game when it comes to etymology and stuff, and you clearly laid it out. And I don't know if you saw the couple of questions that I had in the chat. I mean, basically, it seems like the transliteration of the Bible is involving some syncretism. Am I correct by saying that?
That's right. That's right. You know, It's starting with the name of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine how much of a difference it would make if we saw Yahweh or Yah throughout the scriptures, wherever we see Lord, right? Can you imagine if we saw Adonai or Adonai-Yah? Can you imagine if we saw Yahweh Shai, even though some would say Yeshua, either or? Can you imagine if we saw that inside the text versus what the Pope and all those guys decided to do? Can you imagine how much power?
Absolutely.
Can you imagine how many strongholds that would truly be broken?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really makes you wonder what else they changed or what else they messed with. You know, and even in the book of Revelation, John had warned, don't add nor take away from the book. And here we see that clearly they're messing around the word of the Most High, and it's very disturbing. It really makes you wonder. I never thought that was possible, really, that people could actually tamper with the word of Yah that way. But and I was always a found believer that no, the Bible is unadulterated. It's not tampered with at all. It's the true. It's without any mixture of error whatsoever. And here it is. You just brought something out that I'm clearly seeing that, yeah, it's possible that they could have messed with the scriptures simply to get everyone on one accord, according to their own agenda. So it's really disturbing to me that that's possible.
And you hitting it on the nail. And the way that we were raised was to truly reverence the word of the Most High. Right. You were scared to even knock the Bible off the table. You were scared to even drop a Bible. We all had that big white Bible on the coffee table. Right. You were scared to even knock that or turn a page. That was turn to the 23rd book of Psalms, right? You were scared. That's how much of a reverence we have. We would never think that someone would stoop to the level to manipulate and modify translations to deceive people. But we were at the front row seat because they had slave Bibles that really took out everything that they could think of that referred to slavery or liberation, rather. But anything that they can manipulate to say that we're supposed to be slaves, they left it there. So they did that then. And they were already in the works to try to make sure that they had this power. Kind of like when I showed the clip of Eli, because you see the parallel. He wanted to have total power, and that's similar to what the Pope. See, the key with Eli in that movie is he really didn't depend on the book. It was really in his heart. You know what I mean? So it's so much to that, but you would never think, and that's why you hear the term lost in translations, right? I took a class, right? With Oxford, right? And they taught the downside of translating from one language to the other language. They said that you're at the mercy of the people that are doing the writing. But then two, you cannot 100% accurately take a language, a text written in one language and put it into another language. Right. You're going to always have something that gets lost in the translation.
Because of that cultural barrier, right?
Absolutely.
And, if anything, I've always thought that it was just a transliteration, and I left it as that. I never thought that there was an actual agenda, such as syncretism, behind transliteration. And it really makes you wonder. And I saw a brother actually said this in the chat. Well, what Bible is a good Bible to actually depend on, or is there one? What do you think, Pastor?
Well, truth be told, this is where it's good to learn the Hebrew, right? Because the more you start learning Hebrew, and I'm not saying you have to be a master in it, but to know at least if you're studying a particular text, how to navigate to get, to pull out what it actually means versus the layers, because unfortunately, when we look at these different translations out here, it's, the person that's empowered is the person that's doing the translating, right? This is why we have so many different Bibles, like the homosexual Bible, the gay Bible, the gay and lesbian, the Kanye West Bible, and when you start really understanding even the manuscripts, because even though you have like the Alexandria manuscripts, for example, just using that for example, but there are corruptions within it. That's why they call it the corrupt text, because you'll start understanding Origen and those guys that was into Gnosticism. So you'll see a difference between the Byzantine, what they call a majority text, because you have thousands of manuscripts that they use to confirm, right? So, but when you look at the Alexandria manuscript and compare it, there's like 60,000, at least 60,000 errors, right?
Wow.
So, with that, that's why I really don't deal with the NIV unless I'm honing in on a key verse that may read a certain way, a point that you're trying to relay. But truth be told, my brother, we have to, this is why it's imperative for us not necessarily have to master Hebrew, but at least know how to go into it to really understand what the text is saying.
And ever since my awakening, that's one thing that I gather the Spirit was putting that within my heart to actually learn more of the Hebrew language. Especially the Paleo Hebrew, that is, because even when you look at the modern Hebrew, from my understanding, it has Yiddish in it. So yeah, and I remember even when we first met, I was asking you about, if you knew any sources and stuff like that I could use to actually learn Paleo Hebrew. So yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from, Pastor, and we really have to be careful nowadays, with what we're reading, and go back to the original source. And for some reason, a lot of people don't believe in going back to the original source. They want to use what's modern, and they think because of technology and everything, the modern sources are truer than the historical sources, and that's just not true, But your title, I'm trying to remember the exact words. I don't wait. I don't believe in God. And what was the other one? It was actually two parts.
Yeah, I don't believe in God, but I'm not an atheist.
But I'm not an atheist. I was like, I know Pastor ain't going off the road with this one, out of the way with this one. So I said I got to pay attention and listen to what he's saying and see where he's coming from. I'm sure you got something to bring out, and sure enough, you did. You brought it out, and I appreciate you for that.
Well, appreciate you, my brother. And for those that, and I am going to do something with the Hebrew, teaching Hebrew, because I teach it in our assembly. And now I have the ministers actually teaching it. I've been teaching it for years. And now to help reinforce it with them, they are now teaching it, right? And so what I'll do, we'll have like some offline sessions, and those that are interested, just reach out to me and we'll do some offline sessions, because some things I just don't like to do publicly because of the spirit and the day and time we living in.
Absolutely. I understand.
Everyone is trying to prove and debate and debunk, and it's like I really don't want to deal with that stuff. I want to stay clear from all of that stuff, and that's why right now I'm making it clear what I believe here. Because so much is getting lost. And I know it can be a hard thing for many to grasp when they hear me say, don't call me a Christian, right? I'm not saying that to try to insult anyone, but I'm saying that to trigger a thought to say, well, why is he saying that? Well, you know what? Let me listen to what he have to say. Is he going to just sound like he's just trying to hate against everything, or is he going to give actual proof on why he come to that conclusion?
Mm-hmm. And I realized that myself. I realized that you were not being insulting. If anything, you're referring to the etymology of the different terms that we use nowadays. And like you were saying, we've been born and raised to think a certain way and to speak a certain way. And again, it contributes to that agenda of syncretism. And we got to fall out of that. We got to fall back from that. And again, seek the truth. And like you're saying, we got to study the words. I mean, study the words, the actual, every single word, to see exactly what the Hebrew meaning of that word is. So yeah, I'm totally with you, Pastor.
And see, that's what's the tough part of it, is because we've been taught a certain way for so long, and when you know, it can be hard when you hear certain things like, hey, God, that's not no, that's not the Most High. That's not the
Right.
Most High. That's that's something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's another culture. That's a deity from somebody else's belief system. But
Right.
you've been taught to rehearsing this name over and over again because you see it in the holy text. But then you're like, wait a minute, but that gotta be real. You know, I mean, you're not going to tell me that, for example, Jesus did not bring me out of my situations, right? And I remember earlier this year, I did a teaching, and man, you gonna laugh, doctor, man. Some of the old ladies was about to you know,
So part of
it
their
looked like
way.
they were about to jump on me, man, because I said to them, right, man, I said to them, I said, what if I told you that there's no power in the name Jesus?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Doctor,
I could just imagine.
they were, man, they looked like they was about to just go in on me. They was upset, boy, until I heard they heard me say, what if I told you that there's no power in the ancient name? And they froze. I said, actually, the power is in the bearer of it.
Right. The reputation.
The
right.
reputation.
Right.
See,
Right.
when we understand that, and I asked them the question, what was the difference between the Messiah and Barnabas? And I had to explain to them they had the same name. Bar is Aramaic for son. Abbas is father. So son of the Father. But his name was actually the same as the Messiah. So how do you how do you distinguish the two? One was a murderer, while the other one was a bringer of light, but they both had the same name. So I had to explain to them the importance of the bearer of the name. So how we were able to do that, even though the Most High winked at our ignorance, is the fact that we were not trying to call on these pagan stuff, but we were going off of what we know, the reputation, because we're reading out of the scriptures. So we know that we're praying to the Father based off the reputation. But now that we know the truth, what are we going to do from there?
Right. Right.
But
And, you
yeah,
know, and it's thankful.
I'm
thankful that the Most High knows our heart. You know, even in our ignorance, he knows our heart. And, you know, I'll admit, you know, when I first developed a relationship with the Most High, I would call him God. And it even got to a point where God was his name, right? But at the same time, you look at the dollar bill and it says what? In God we trust. And I'm like, well, you know, that's not the same God. That's the secular world's God. I know the God that I'm serving, right? And so even then, it was kind of hard for me to shake out of that etymology of calling the Most High God. You understand? And to be honest with you, you know, this lesson is really bringing it out because even, you know, now I'm, you know, every now and then I say God, you know, I'm going to admit that. But I'm learning to get out of that because I do realize that God is not his actual name, like you're saying, you know. And, you know, even then there's so many other names that he's called, the Most High is called. And it's like, well, which one is he? You know, and you're saying Yahweh. So, you know, and I trust you, you know, you know your Hebrew, you know, and of course I'm going to do my own research. I mean, I've always been that way. I don't just go on what someone else is saying. But, you know, I'm going, and that's one of the reasons why I want to get deeply involved in speaking and learning Paleo Hebrew so I can know for myself. And, you know, again, you brought it out and I commend you, Pastor. You really brought it out.
Well, I appreciate it, Doctor. And I know that this can be a tough lesson, especially when you're taught a certain way. And can you imagine being a pastor and now you have to undo a lot of the things that you were groomed to teach?
Right.
You know, you're groomed to teach God, Lord, and certain tenets that contradicts the scriptures. But you just caught up in how you were institutionalized that you don't even think about it until you start making that separation. And I tell you, I repented to the people. My wife was like, wow, and I had to say to her, I had to apologize to her. I repented to the assembly, because once you start really seeing the delusion, it's like, wow. And I had to repent to the Father, like, man, forgive me, y'all, because you put me in this position that I should know, but I didn't. I was so trusting on what I was taught, and but even then, I believe the Most High knows, like we talked about, he knows our heart. And I believe he already knew that eventually I was going to get it right because of my study and how I always study. Eventually I was going to put two and two together. But again, he winks at our ignorance, right? What we don't know. But once we get told, now we're on the clock of what we're going to do with it. And that's a tough pill.
And his grace and mercy is from everlasting to everlasting, from generation to generation. And he knew ahead of time what we were going to go through. And because of that, his mercy and his grace shines upon us. I know your ignorance, but I still know who you're with. You're with me, right? That's what he's saying. He sits high, he looks down low. He knows his people, and he knows the heart of his people. So I thank him for that. I thank him for that, most definitely.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that, for example, my grandmother, she didn't know Hebrew. She went off of what she knew. Guess what? No one's going to tell me that she's going to hell, because I know she's not.
Right.
She dedicated pretty much her whole life, to the Most High.
And
go ahead.
That's the thing. There's so many of us that have not come to this truth. And, as well, I've been raised by my grandfather, my grandmother, as well as my mother. My father was really out of my life, but at the same time, these people, they worship the Most High, even though they didn't understand his name heartfully, right? Look, we know that the Most High doesn't look on the outward appearance. He looks on the heart. And so those that have gone on before us, not necessarily knowing the truth of his name, guess what? They're going to be all right, because God knows. I mean, look, there I go. The Most High knows. The Most High knows, right? He knows our heart. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Pastor.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good, Doctor. You know how we do. You know how we do. And, I'm just appreciative of, you taking the time out to listen to the lesson. Like I said, I know it can be a lot for, when you're making that transition, because again, like you said, that's all we knew. That's all I knew. It's like, wow. And then as you start going into the layers and the studies, it's like, even with me bringing forth that revelation of men profaning the literal name and reputation of the Most High, that came from me studying Hebrew. And I'm just reading the text in Hebrew. And I'm like, wait a minute. That word, kala, that means profane. Wait a minute. Oh, wow. So all the men of that time started profaning the literal name and the reputation along with it. And then that's where you start. I mean, it just really so many things began to click. So like I said, Doctor, it's just, the Most High just put it in my heart to basically put these teachings out there, just so that way the people know that there is truth. Someone is still teaching the truth, and there's a line that we can draw. We may not get it all at one time, but at least we can hold on to just the little things. Like, you know what? Like you just said, I'm just going to start using Yah, even if I may not fully understand his full name, but Yah is pretty easy. Everyone agreed that is the short form of his name is Yah. And I'll show, I'm going to do the teaching on the other stuff next week, but at least, it makes you more conscientious of what you're saying now, especially I'm sure when you saw that, showing that document showing how the Catholic Church purposely gave God and Lord into documents, you know what I mean? Inserting that and taking the tetragrammaton out of that. It's like, wow, taking the Most High's, the letters of his name out. I'm sure that that's a wake up to many that was, caught off guard by seeing that for themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. And for me, it was even going back. I was saying to myself, even if I just keep to the 1611 King James version, I'll be all right. But I'm seeing now that it goes back even further than that, as far as the transliteration and how they have their own agenda and they're tainting the word. So yeah, shaking my head on this one for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now I will say a good Bible for those that are not familiar with the languages, right? Is called the Interlinear Bible,
Okay.
right?
Interlinear.
Interlinear
Okay.
Bible. And what it gives you, right? It'll give you just a straight letter for letter or word for word translation without all the fillers, a lot of the added stuff in there. It'll just give you raw translation of the text. It has it for the Greek and Hebrew.
Okay.
So at least in the interim, if you read going over it to a particular text, you can say, you know what, let me see what it says in the Interlinear Bible. And that's a way that it can help you at least in your studies to really when you're going deep on a particular text, you can actually see what it reads, how it reads. And then the good thing about it on some, with the Interlinear Bible, it'll also have the Strong's numbering in there. So you can always go to have a Strong's in-depth dictionary, and you could kind of do the comparisons and see what scriptures, you know what I mean, just to really get the full context of what that particular passage that you're reading is really saying.
I see. Yeah.
And I think they have an online one. Let me see. I think it's called Scripture for All. Let me see here. Yeah, they have a one called the Scripture for All, and it's free. But you could go to whatever chapter you want, and you could pretty much go from there. I'm gonna put it inside the chat here, and you can literally matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up here. Let me see if I could show it. I'm just gonna pull up Genesis 1:1. You could sorry about that, Doctor. You could go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I'm gonna step away for a minute. I got to do something real quick. I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. All right, fam. I'm going to share this with you guys real quick, just to give you an example of how this Interlinear Bible reads, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up because it is late. Let me see here. All right. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see it. Let me put it on your screen. All right. So I'm just going to zoom in. Oh, it's not letting me zoom in. Let me see here. Oh, let me try it this way. All right. Can you guys see this on your screen? If you can, hit the like button. Or type in one rather. So this is, for example, if you want to go to Scripture for All, right? .org, and it'll give you the interlinear PDFs that you could go to different chapters. Now I'm gonna zoom in more just so that way you could really see how the layout of it. Let me see here. All right, let's see here. Can you see this, Doctor?
Yes, I can.
All right. So as you see here, right? Ha, vret, right? So this you'll see how it reads in ancient Hebrew, right? Bed, vret, sheet, right? So you see here in beginning, ba, ra, he created, right? And then you see Elohim, right? And you see that here, Ath, right? And then you see Ha Shemaim, right? You know, so but you see how it gives you the Hebrew word. Now,
Right.
if you had the actual physical book, it'll actually have the Strong's words for each one. But the PDF, at least it gives you something to go off of. Like to the right here, let me show you to the right. It'll still give you, I think this one gives you, is based off the KJV. So you see here where it says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. But if we came over here, you see how it reads a little different, right?
Right.
But it, in beginning, let me see. Come on now, let me see here. In beginning, he created Elohim, the heavens and the earth. So this is a good source that you can use.
That's good.
If you don't have an actual physical copy of the interlinear Bible, you can actually go here and use the online version, and you could download whatever verse or chapter that you're actually studying from. And it does it for both the Hebrew and the Greek.
This is good. This is really good. I like this.
And
Absolutely.
so definitely appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. Appreciated my brother Jay for taking time out of your schedule to watch the video and jumping on the live here tonight. And we'll definitely connect to talk more about it and go over the Hebrew. But family, we're getting ready to take it down tonight. Brother Jay, Dr. Jay, do you have any other things that you want to share with the people before we wrap up?
Yeah. We want to stay prayerful for. I know what he did was atrocious, but we want to stay prayerful for Brother Polite. Obviously, he's got some issues that he needs to bring before the Most High. We try to handle things on our own, but we fail, and that's the reason why we have Christ, who has come for us. We have him to depend and lean on. And the sooner he realizes that, I think the better off he'll be. But we definitely need to pray for him and the young girl that was involved in this atrocious act that he committed, as well as the family. I'm sure our enemies are looking and saying, hey, there they go again. And they're just smiling at the whole situation. And we got to rise above even this, and pray for him, pray for his family. So I just want to interject. I wanted to interject on that. I know you brought out some things that were going on with that situation, Pastor. And it's really heartbreaking, for one, especially if you have your own daughter. You would hate to see something like that happen to your own daughter, even. So it's sickening, but at the same time, we have to pray for him that he turns his life around, and whatever spirit that is on him gets off him. Because remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, right? So we got to be aware of that.
Well, and just to your point, the unfortunate thing is people can be enablers, can know that someone has a gift, but also know that someone has a problem, have a struggle, and sweep under the rug rather, their struggles, all because of the benefits from the gift, or should I say talent. And you see a lot of that in entertainment, people, because they caught up in the talent of a person, but not really wanting to help that person with whatever things that they struggle with. And I remember years ago when they were beefing, and it was public. And when Sinetta shared how Polite did the same thing, with his wife's relative that was, she was 16 years old, and the girl ran away to be with him and became one of his wives, so to speak. So he knew this. So why then not take care of it even then?
Right.
It could have prevented another victim.
Absolutely.
And that's what's really alarming for me, is that sometimes the people can be enablers, those that want to benefit from your talent, but not really concerned about your spirit, concerned about your soul, concerned about the things that you can do that can hurt so many people.
And that's the reason why we got to uplift one another and even tell each other when we're going wrong. And like you're saying, that's the hardest thing to do when other things are foreshadowing that, such as your talent, even what you have, you got people with entourages, right? And what are those entourages there for? The money. They see that whoever they're following has money and they're looking to get a piece, So yeah, we definitely, it's like we're all each other's watchmen. And if we don't blow the trumpet, then the blood is on our hands as well. We got to learn to call out things that our brothers are doing, and let the blood be on their own hands. In other words, granted, Polite is his own man. He's a grown man. He should know better. But at the same time, we too have responsibilities when it comes to our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and I would say for me, definitely placing, I'm placing the point of emphasis on the child, because you know how it goes. A child cannot defend themselves,
right?
Absolutely. And for me, and I'm not saying not to pray for the adults, but the children didn't ask to be be in these positions, and it's responsible. It's the responsibilities of the adults to protect the children. So this child had no control, and I see this a lot in ministry, doing ministry for so long, that parents make decisions and don't take into account their children, how their children is going to be affected by their decisions, whether it's, I'm going to leave this ministry, I'm going to go to another ministry, but not realizing how engaging their child was in that particular ministry, or they're going to move to another state, or they're going to move to another house, or, really not counting the cost. So I'm going to move my child to another school, not taking it in consideration. And so the for me is the scripture make it clear we have to protect those that cannot defend themselves. The single women, the widows, the orphans, the widows, they can't protect themselves. And we have a responsibility to protect them. And, part of the responsibility, and I'm not going to get into preaching and nothing like that, but Moses saw that there was a problem among some of the men. And that problem was how they would treat their wife if she did not produce a son. So many of them began to abuse or try to make a false accusations and start slandering them, just so that way they can find a reason to put them away. Right. So, but they were really being brutal to the women, many of them being treated worse than the animals. So he came up with that letter of divorce, not just to protect the woman, but to protect the man as well. Like, look, before you resort to this right here, look, just walk away from the situation. So that way no one is losing their life. So at least, you can live to see another day, get it right with the Most High, but no one's life is being in jeopardy. So that, and that's the wisdom behind it. And that's how we have to, when we look at situations like this, to really look at like we talked about, what are we going to gain out of this? What is the lessons learned that we all can learn from this? And It's just so many people, even right now. That's why I want to pull away even from that story. I'll talk about it once more news come out later on, but I don't want to get caught up in it to where as though that's becoming my main discussion, because people are running to, like Zion Lex gave a prime example. He said normally he has anywhere from 80 to 100 people on his lives. But once he started talking about that situation, all of a sudden, one live he had, I think when he first broke it, the news, he had like almost 1,500 people watching him live, close to 2,000 people, all because of wanting to gossip in that itching ear. So, but yeah, I definitely understand. And like you said, we just have to really take into account the whole picture, not just polite, but also those around them. Because again, they can be more dangerous than the person themselves because of knowing this person may have things that they struggle with, he or she may struggle with, but instead of addressing it, would rather focus on the benefits that they're getting out of it.
And sweep the bad stuff underneath the rug. And I just want to extend it a little bit more. You know, the only reason why we're hearing about this is because Polite is well known. Just imagine there are other cases where people aren't well known and it's going on. So seriously, family, we got to come together and we got to call a duck, right? We got to call it what it is, and root out those things that are those bad habits or those bad behaviors that we have. Letting each other know, yeah, my brother, that's wrong. I mean, you got to change your way there, and it's our responsibility as well to make sure our brother and sister are on the right track. Each and every one of us should be doing that.
Absolutely. And well said. And with that being said, anything else you want to share, Doctor, before we wrap up?
No, I commend you, Pastor. Good lesson tonight.
Appreciate you, Doctor. Appreciate you, and family. I appreciate you guys for watching tonight. And in the words of that Moses spoke to the children of Israel in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14, at the instructions of the Most High, as Israel was facing what seemed to be a dead end, he said to them, "Fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians, these strongholds, this stumbling block that's in front of you right now would not have power over you ever again. The Most High will fight for you, but you have to hold your peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom."